Hey everyone, welcome back to Grasping Grand Theft Auto, a series that breaks down the mechanics of the GTA games. To those that are just joining us, I'd recommend watching the first episode uploaded last week, as it gives you an introduction to the series and what my plans involve. This episode will be focusing on breaking down the weather and time cycles within the games. As you can probably tell from my insanely attractive accent, I'm from England, the same gorgeous country that brought you David Attenborough, Shakespeare, and these guys.
Oh, Muppets on Facebook thinking you're bad, mate. I lined every last one of your birds up and bomb them one by one. Fucking bear rat most.
It rains here, a lot. We don't have much variance in weather, but GTA certainly does. Inside the game's data folder, there is a file named timecyc.dat, which handles all the important settings in regards to the game's weather. The weather patterns are based on what is referred to as the time cycle, and basically show the structure in how the weather is handled hour by hour. Each change is made at the start of an in-game hour. For example, at exactly midnight it could start raining, and this weather effect will stay until the next change at 1 AM, and so on. Usually weather patterns stay for a few cycles, but it depends on what you're doing. Certain missions, like Publicity Tour, force an obvious weather change on you, as it always begins to rain when you start the mission. Some are not so obvious, however. For example, saving the game actually increases the cycle by 1 each time. The main point of the cycle is to make sure that the weather patterns are consistent. To my speedrunning viewers, this is why you always get rain in specific places of your run. When you start a new game, the weather cycle is reset and the clock starts ticking, and so does the time cycle. There are 7 different weather types in Vice City. There is sunny, cloudy, rainy, foggy, extra sunny, and hurricane. We will come back to the 7th one later, as it's very different to the others. These types of weather are what the cycle chooses from, and also the types that can be forced by things such as missions. As you can see on the screen, there are actually 2 cycles in Vice City, and you may know why if you've paid attention during the game's early radio broadcasting.
Muhammad Chanel. Ow! I'm the one. On this.
We interrupt your programming
What
with
the
a message
fuck?
from the State Department. All bridges and some roads in the Vice City metropolitan area have been closed because of a severe weather warning. Meteorologists are tracking Hurricane Hermione, which has devastated 5 Caribbean islands and is heading for Vice City. More updates soon.
Wait. Did the radio announcer just say there's a hurricane coming through?
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
This alert is the lore reason why the bridges to the other islands are closed, and Rockstar actually created a different weather cycle for when the bridges are closed or not. When you start the game, the hurricane cycle is loaded, but the game switches to the no hurricane cycle after you complete Phnom Penh and unlock the West Island. For some odd reason, it actually switches back to the hurricane cycle once you complete the game. I'm not sure why, as the hurricane never comes back in the story, but maybe this was placed in for testing purposes and was never removed? But purely speculation, I have no idea. Let's break down the time cycle a little bit to show how it translates to real time. Each of these numbers dictate the weather type on each hour of the in-game clock. Every hour is 1 minute real time, so for the sake of consistency, we'll be talking about real minutes here. This cycle begins once you start a new game, and for 8 minutes your game will be extra sunny. After 20 minutes, it will start to rain, and so on, assuming that the cycle hasn't been affected by something such as a mission, but let's talk about those for a bit. As I mentioned before, missions can change the weather type. It's done in several ways. The first way is to force an upcoming weather type, the second is to force an immediate weather type, and the third is to release the weather type. An example of the first method is present in Supply and Demand, where the script executes this command at the bottom. This line states that it is forcing the upcoming weather to be 0, aka sunny, but it doesn't happen immediately. Upcoming weather refers to it changing on the next cycle, so it won't become sunny until the next hour occurs. A good example of the second method is in the aforementioned Publicity Tour. Once you finish the first cutscene, this particular piece of code is executed. The section at the bottom is changing the weather immediately, so no matter what time of day it is, it will rain as soon as you finish the first cutscene. The third example is also present here, as the mission script puts the weather back on the usual cycle once you pass it. Remember earlier when I mentioned a 7th weather type? This one is labelled as Weather Extra Colors, and basically is weather but for interiors. Its purpose is to use certain values from the timecyc.dat to change colour effects in certain places. It's interesting that Rockstar actively put interior effects and weather together, because there are some silly bugs including them both. For example, if you skip Barbrawl's cutscene and then complete the mission, you will see a drastic visual effects change right as you pass the mission. This is because you are experiencing the interior effects during the mission, which is only supposed to happen during the cutscene. Passing the mission effectively fixes the colour scheme, and that's why the change is so abrupt. Furthermore, if it's raining and you do a stadium event such as Dirt Ring, the rain will still affect your bike handling, even though you're supposed to be inside a stadium fitted with a roof. Maybe there's like a big leak somewhere? I don't know. In my last video, a few of you asked if I was going to delve into any other games instead of just Vice City. I will be looking at other games when there is opportunity to do so, but if it's all just copy and pasted code, then I'll just use Vice City as a base, since that's the game I'm most knowledgeable of. Thankfully for you guys, unlike the wanted level system, the weather does work quite differently in the other titles. GTA 3, for example, only has 4 weather types: sunny, cloudy, rainy, and foggy. There's also an interesting glitch in GTA 3, where if you play replays at a specific time, you can skip weather cycles one by one. This is used in speedruns to completely skip by rain and fog in certain places. San Andreas actually has hundreds of different weather types, based on location as well as time. Since the map is so much larger than Vice City's, it makes sense that weather is different depending on where you are on the map. There's a great gallery online which I'll link in the description. This gallery showcases all of them based on ID and provides screenshots of how they look. Although I must warn you, some of them are definitely very hard to look at. Well, that about sums up the weather. Please let me know whether you learned something new. But for real, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you learned something new today. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Bye!